and I think you'll be prompted. There you go. Prompted to accept the recording. Thank you. I want to remind everyone that you can choose your audio preference, and we recommend choosing the mute function during the presentation. If you're invited to speak, of course, please unmute yourself. And we highly recommend and appreciate your active participation today by sending in questions via the chat box. So while we know Kristen will cover the topic thoroughly, we would also appreciate some follow-up questions during the Q&A section. So please be an engaged listener. Throughout the webinar, we'll monitor the questions and then present them to Kristen during the Q&A session. So you'll see some people have already started this, but to make sure your chat box is functioning properly, we kindly request that you introduce yourself by providing your name, title, and nonprofit that you are associated with. All right, so before we get going, we want to thank our primary sponsor today, Idaho Central Credit Union. Without them, we would not be able to provide these wonderful complimentary webinars. So thank you so much to ICCU. Also, I want to point out we have some events coming up. We really encourage you to register for the next 2 events in this series. We have one on July 25th and one on August 8th, and we'll put in the link so that you can register for those if you have not already, but we'd love to see you again because this is a series that builds from one to the next. And then because you're attending today, you will receive an invite to attend our networking social, which will be August 15th at Brick West Brewery. And because you're attending, you will get a complimentary drink ticket. And if you know somebody that would like to attend the networking social, you of course can invite them, but there is a $10 fee for those that did not attend. And that networking social will be a combination of nonprofits and professional advisors. We held it last year, had a tremendous event, and we hope to see you again this year. So one last piece before we introduce Kristen. The disclaimer, of course, this is purely for educational purposes and should not be considered legal or financial advice. So please consult your own professional advisors for your specific circumstances. All right, so I want to formally introduce today's speaker, Kristen Mahalovic. Kristen is the Senior Director of Plan Giving at the Arizona Community Foundation. She leads efforts related to plan giving. She manages the Arizona Endowment Building Institute and oversees services for nonprofit fund holders and focuses on complex asset and plan giving asset development. So without any further ado, Kristen, I am going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome, everybody. I am thrilled to be here virtually with you today and hope that in the future we have a chance for our paths to cross. I am always looking for an opportunity to leave Arizona in the middle of the summer, as we were talking about earlier. And I even mentioned that I have a couple of fund holders in my portfolio that have homes in Coeur d'Alene. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. So before I get started, I always like to tell people where I'm coming from and why plan giving and endowment are important to me and why it's become my work and how I approach it. When I was a nonprofit development professional, like so many others, what did we do? We chased those annual givers. We put on our events. We were working to get the right people at the table or get that golf outing going and sending out our holiday appeal and just waiting for the cash gifts that came in. And I knew there had to be a different way. And the last nonprofit that I worked for had $1 million endowment. And I thought, this is so cool. We took our annual distribution from it each year. And then I started asking questions. What if we were able to grow it? Would we be able to maybe drop one of our lazy events? I'm talking about particularly our golf outing. 8 months of work that went into maybe getting $40,000. Wouldn't it be fun for us if we could just do it as a goodwill gesture for our donors versus having to rely on it for operations? And so I started asking questions, and my executive director was not interested in pursuing any type of plan giving or building the endowment. But what I found out later is that we did have board members that really would have embraced that. And so when I came to work at the Arizona Community Foundation about 6 years ago, it was with the intention of bringing my nonprofit development experience and being able to connect with more nonprofits to help them understand things that I wish I knew back when I was a development professional. So if we were in person, I would ask people to raise their hand for this question. But think about this. Have you ever gotten in the mail a notification or a check from somebody, their estate plans? Maybe you got a letter from a law office that's telling you you're going to be the recipient of some sort of estate gift. Or maybe you got the check, whatever the case may be. If you've ever gotten one of those, think about how powerful that was, how excited you were, however much it was. And did it get you to think about, what if we could get more of these gifts? What would we have to do? Statistically, for each gift that you know about, each planned estate gift, there are at least 4 more out there that you know nothing about. So there is tremendous potential for you to start seeing these types of gifts coming in. And so through this series, we're going to start to talk about that. And today we're going to talk about why endowment. So I gave you a little bit of background on myself and my nonprofit development experience. And why do you even want to consider an endowment? You know, most of us will never work for an organization like Harvard with their amazing endowment, but you might go to work for, I don't know, Gonzaga University and see that they have an amazing endowment. But for us as nonprofits, we shouldn't be left out of that. And when you're talking with your donors, if you're not talking about some sort of estate gift, you're not closing the loop and doing your job as a development professional. So why endowment? Why do we really need to be looking at this? You know, for decades, we've been doing things the way we have, you know, the events, bringing in money that way, maybe writing for grants, things like that. But things are changing. Current events, we see this happening all the time, affecting the way that people give. Tax law changes, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, the Secure Act in 2020, and then the 2.0 version this year. I'm so sorry. People keep wanting to beep me, and I'm sorry about that beeping going on in the background. This will be one of those bloopers that I talk about when I do my presentations. Tax law changes, so keep that in mind. How people give, event fatigue. How many of you are struggling or have struggled with getting the right people at your events, getting the right people at the tables that are going to bid on auction items, just getting that energy there? We've all seen it. And then honestly, fear that it'll rob your annual givers. In my last nonprofit development position, that's exactly what my executive director said. Do not talk about these types of gifts with donors because it will rob our annual givers. And that he was adamant that that was the case. In a minute, I'm going to show you a slide that I wish I had back when I was working in that organization. Back in 2019, I had a chance to listen to Brian Klontz. Now, I know my friends at Innovia Foundation know exactly who Brian is, but he is a recognizable figure in the gift planning realm. And he made this prediction. By 2020, nonprofits need to get 20% of their operating revenue from endowment. And I thought that was really dire. And in 2019, we hadn't even hit the pandemic. It wasn't even an idea on the horizon. But I really took that to heart. What would it take for nonprofit organizations to get 20% of their operating revenue from endowment? And it seemed like, you know, that's 11 years off. That's attainable. And I ran into Brian last fall at the National Charitable Gift Planners Conference, where I saw Chris and quite a few other Innovia rock stars. And I asked him again, Brian, do you still feel this way? And he said, I feel more strongly about it now than I ever have. So I continue to carry Brian's message, and I continue to work with nonprofits so that they can be thinking about what would it take. Next slide. Here it is. Here is the slide. This is from Dr. Russell James. Everybody calls him the guru of gift planning. He is out of Texas Tech, and he has an army of graduate students that work on statistics on planned giving and endowment. And this is the slide. If there's nothing else that you take away from this to drive home why you need to have a gift planning program, this is it right here. So on the far left side, you see in the black bars, that is the average annual giving pre-planned gift. So this is your annual givers. This might be, people who are just making, that simple annual gift, maybe your holiday appeal, something where, it's a consistent annual gift. Now, on the far right-hand side in the red bars, this is the average annual giving post-planned gift. So now they've made some sort of gift to benefit your organization through their estate plans. It never goes back to what it was before. You have donors that are now invested and committed to your organization, not only just surviving, but also thriving financially. So this is the slide. This is the one you want to take away and take to your leadership. Next slide, please. Okay, so today, what are we going to do? We're going to talk about what is an endowment. Very simply, very basically. I talk with people all the time who don't understand what endowment is. And for nonprofits, we're going to kind of touch on that so that you feel better about it. And how do you build an endowment? Well, you build an endowment through planned gifts. It's not going to be through your annual givers. It's not going to be through your events or anything like that. You build endowment through planned giving. Those are the large gifts, the gifts at the end of life from assets. And then who makes planned gifts? Who does this? We're going to talk about it. Unfortunately, statistically, not many people create some sort of estate plan. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can connect with your donors to make sure that they are doing something, and then hopefully recognizing your organization. Next slide. Okay, what is endowment? And so we're going to jump right into that. Right out of the dictionary, here's the definition of an endowment: a perpetual benefit of a nonprofit institution. So this is something that is meant to go on forever. And when you think about, again, endowments, when we hear about large endowments like the Harvard Endowment, universities and hospitals were probably, in my opinion, at that forefront of planned giving and building endowment. They were the ones talking with their alumni about making a gift to the organization, or those grateful patients that got good health care, making a gift to their organization. So an asset donated to and for the perpetual benefit of a nonprofit institution. The donation is usually made with, oh, there you go, that's okay. The donation is usually made with the requirement that the principal remain intact. So that principal, theoretically, will continue to grow as the economy does. And money earned from the investing of the principal will be used for specific purposes. All right, we're ready for the next slide. Let's talk about Raquel Pekarsky. Oh my gosh, that's horrible that I stumbled on her name. Raquel is one of ACF's individuals, the Arizona Community Foundation, who created an endowment specifically for several nonprofit organizations in our area. And Raquel did this beginning in 1994 with a gift of $780,000. And she was very specific about the organizations that she wanted to support, but she wanted this to go on in perpetuity. So forever, she wanted these organizations to be able to receive money. Today, the fund balance is almost $1 million, $975,000. But keep in mind, over 2 decades, she has given more than $1 million from her fund to be able to benefit these treasured organizations. And so this is a little bit outdated. If you're doing the math right now, please don't text me later and let me know that there's probably more money in there. but organizations that Raquel listed are continue to get some sort of annual gift from her. So next slide. There we go. So again, continuing with what is an endowment? It is a binding understanding for a permanent restriction on the use of funds. Maybe it's permanent, maybe it's not. Maybe it is unrestricted and it's just money. The only restriction is that it's endowed. It may be a percentage of earnings. Typically, nonprofit organizations will have as part of their policies a spending policy, how much of an endowment is available. I see between 4 and 6%. If your organization has one, go ahead and check it out, see what it is. At the Arizona Community Foundation, ours is 4.25%. I don't know if Chris, if you want to chime in on what Innovia's spending policy is, love to hear it.
We actually, PJ, go ahead.
We do 4% and we do it on a 13-quarter rolling average to help take out the bumps in the market, the highs and lows. And we do that conservative 4% to allow that principal to grow by the extra earnings that are retained and
Yeah, PJ, you said exactly the key to this, conservative. These distributions are typically conservative, and that 4% is really in line with what we're seeing. It was just about 5 years ago that ACF went from 5% down to 4.25%. And so we're all, as community foundations, I think we're all in line with our thinking on that. Now, there may also be additional restrictions on these types of endowments. It could be programmatic or maybe for a building or something like that. We also see things like the timing of the distributions. Somebody may have a specific, like, we want you to get it at the beginning of a new fiscal year. They may also have investment terms. I don't see that as frequently, but it is a possibility. But one thing that every endowment needs to have is it needs to be administered under the UPMIFA terms. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute if you're not familiar with UPMIFA and what that acronym is. A true endowment can only be created by a donor. If your organization is creating its own endowment, we call that a board designated or a quasi endowment. And quite simply, what it is one board can't tie the hands of a future board. And so in the case of Raquel and her fund, that was created by her as a donor with us to benefit other nonprofit organizations. So let's go ahead to the next slide and we'll talk about UPMIFA. It is nobody's favorite thing, and but understanding that if you have an endowment, that you have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to be able to manage this in accordance with the Uniform Prudent Management of Institutional Funds Act, UPMIFA. The state of Washington has accepted this, and when it comes to Innovia managing their endowment, we all manage it in accordance with UPMIFA. Organizations offering an endowment should formalize their agreement with a donor. And then I always say, make sure that it says something in there about managed in accordance with UPMIFA. And so keep this in mind. There is written guidance about management of those funds. And if you're going to have an endowment, making sure that you are managing it in accordance with this. This is national. Some states, Arizona for one of them, has a little bit different lines, but we follow UPMIFA for ours. Okay, next slide. I do a presentation, by the way, on UPMIFA that lasts 45 minutes. It's nobody's favorite. It's not well attended, but it is true. We can do one and really bore you for a good 45 minutes if you're ever interested. So endowments are built by planned gifts. I said this before. How do you build an endowment? It's through planned gifts. It's those big gifts at the end of life. So let's go ahead and take a look at what a planned gift is. Essentially what it is a gift made in the present that will mature in the future. And so we're going to take a look at some different types of plan gifts here coming up. But mostly I want to impress upon you that 70% or more of the plan gifts that are made come in the form of a bequest in a will or a trust. So keep that in mind as we go through these slides today. Next slide. All right, so we're all familiar with giving today. As we approach donors, we talk about cash and credit cards are probably the most common. And then we start to look at things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, life insurance, real estate. These could all be gifts that are given now. If your organization is getting gifts from donors who are 70.5 years old or more, then they might be making qualified charitable distributions to your organization. Those are fabulous. Be talking about those with your donors who are 70.5 years old. Charitable lead trusts are also another option. For a while here, we were working with a lot of estate planning attorneys who were creating these charitable lead trusts. They're great because the charity gets the lead gift. They're the ones that are getting the money first. We love that. Rates have changed here recently. They've probably maxed out. So we're not seeing the charitable lead trust creation that we did even just 6-8 months ago. But these are all gifts typically that you will see, as donors are making them during lifetime. Now, as we look ahead to gifts that we see, as part of plan gifts typically, right there at the top is that bequest. 70% or more of plan gifts come in the form of a will or a trust. So keep this in mind. If that's the case, you should be talking about this with all of your donors. Retirement account assets. I love retirement account assets. And the reason for this is because some gifts are better to give to charity than they are to heirs. And retirement account assets are exactly that. Unless they're giving it to their spouse, giving it to heirs can be a tax consequence for them. And in some cases, maybe even a nightmare tax consequence. Thanks to the Secure Act, or like we like to call it, the Work Till You Die Act, the Stretch IRA has been eliminated. And heirs receiving retirement account assets now must take them all within 10 years. That could be the nightmare because there's a lot of assets held in retirement accounts, and as an heir, you are responsible for the taxes on those retirement account assets. So retirement account assets, be talking about this with your donors. Charitable remainder trust, CRTs, they're a great tool, but you're not going to see them as often. And it may even be a period of time before you even see the benefit of them. About a week and a half ago, I got notification from a family that mother had died. She was 106 years old. She has 2 charitable remainder trusts that the Arizona Community Foundation is trusteeing. And now it's flips. She was 106. Now her sons, who are in their 80s, are now going to be receiving the income from those charitable remainder trusts. And then it goes on for another generation. There's a grandson that is going to receive the income from this charitable remainder trust. So it may still be decades before we see any of this money. And our role in this as the Community Foundation is to be able to administer their charitable wishes with us. So there are charities out there that were named back in the 90s that are still not going to receive any money from this. So charitable remainder trust, great tool for high net worth families and individuals, but maybe not always the one that you should be getting excited about. Life insurance. I think this is one of these assets that people don't realize that it's an asset that they have and they can use. When you're talking with donors, learning more about the assets they have, don't just pass over life insurance unless they say something like, oh, I listed you as a beneficiary of my insurance policy. Well, of course you would. Why wouldn't you? That's the easiest thing. But life insurance can be used as an excellent asset. So keep that in mind. And then life estates. Here's where we see, and you may also be seeing this in your communities. There are a lot of people here in Arizona that have more than one home, and a life estate we see a lot of gifts of real estate, but a life estate for seniors and their ability to stay in their house comfortably. They want to go out feet first when the time comes, and being able to plan ahead so that a home is not a burden on the heirs. Setting up a life estate may be something worthwhile to look at. We actually see a lot of life estates get set up because of this reason here in Arizona. So keep that in mind. There are a lot of really great ways to give and plan gifts. These are just some examples. Next slide. All right, so what makes a gift a planned gift? Here we go, the basic criteria for a planned gift. This is what we see, and I think all my friends at Innovia would say the same thing. Typically, it's assets rather than cash. These are the large gifts at the end of life. People are concerned that they may run out of money, and so they're more likely to make a planned gift to benefit their favorite charity or charities rather than giving their cash away. Interesting situation. Earlier this year, I talked with one of my donor advised fund holders, and he and his wife have been very active with giving, utilizing appreciated stock to continue to build up their donor advised fund. And this time when they started talking about their giving for this next year, their financial advisor said, I want you to be thinking about making planned gifts to your favorite charities rather than utilizing your stock for this at this time. Now they're in their early 80s. And when he called me and he said, Kristen, a few years ago, you said something to me about working with you on our charitable estate plans. I want to talk with you more about this now, because our financial advisor basically said the same thing. And we want to learn more about this and what we should be doing. And so what their financial advisor is basically saying is, you could still live a long time. And instead of using your assets now, let's plan to use your assets for when you pass. And so that's exactly where they repositioned themselves. And again, it involved the trusted financial advisor. It may also involve maybe their CPA or their tax accountant, maybe their estate planning attorney. But this is what we're seeing more of as people get older, is instead of using the cash and the assets that they have now for giving, they're looking ahead and they're making these planned gifts. And it usually is part of an overall planning strategy. You've probably heard of blended gifts, that type of thing. And so these are your donors, maybe your annual givers, maybe they buy a table at your event, that type of thing. But they're already supporting your organization. And so now they're looking at, maybe they're going to start backing off from that, depending on how old they are. And maybe they're going to look at setting up some sort of estate gift. So keep that in mind. These are the basics for a planned gift. Next slide. All right, let's talk about this. Cash is not king. It is actually your worst gift. I mean, honestly, Dr. Russell James would tell you all day long, you should be talking with donors about planned gifts. Cash is wonderful if you, just to continue to support operations, but it should not be what you're focusing on. It is not king anymore. Working to get those types of gifts is going to leave a whole bunch of money on the table. With the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, the standard deduction is so high now that the majority of people are not itemizing. And so those types of givers that give based because they want to get a tax deduction, that's declining. When you're talking with donors who make current gifts or outright gifts, it's very transactional. They're not talking with their financial advisor. They're probably just writing you a check or giving you their credit card number. They can be very simple. They might not even be coming from the IRA or donor advised fund. So you're kind of leaving money on the table by just talking about current and outright gifts. Talking about planned gifts gets them thinking about the other assets that they have. And that's the key to it. What other assets do they have? I had a wonderful conversation with a donor last summer, and she was working on updating her will and trust and wanted to leave a certain percentage to the Arizona Community Foundation to benefit a couple of charities that were important to her. And so as I continued to talk with her, she was a cat person. She had several cats. I wore navy and all of her cats were white, or some had white in their fur, and they were all sitting on my lap, but they were wonderful. The most lovely couple. We talked about travel. And in the time that I was there, I started to learn things about she and her husband. And they didn't have children. They had rental property. She was making her charitable gifts from her checkbook and not utilizing the IRA qualified charitable distribution option. So as we started talking about these things, you could just see the delight that she was learning, and why aren't people telling me about this? And by the time I left, she was now set up to make qualified charitable distributions to her preferred charities during lifetime, rather than using her cash, because she and her husband like to go to Italy. And then as part of her estate plans, she is going to leave the community foundation these rental properties that she has, starting in lifetime, during with one of them that she's ready to get rid of, but they don't need the income from it, and starting to simplify their lives, leaving these properties to the community foundation so that they can be added to her overall giving plan. We built such a great relationship. I love talking with them. And it was a perfect example of, I went thinking that we were just going to talk about a simple estate gift, and that wasn't the case. There was a lot more to it. Tax planning is often key. So people who are making a planned gift, they are motivated by tax positioning. Several years ago, the Arizona Community Foundation actually did a study with our donors about what prompted them to start giving or open up a fund with the community foundation. And at what point did they feel like they had changed the way that they think about giving? Because it always started the same way: tax positioning. Their financial advisor, their CPA, whoever was telling them, you need to be thinking about your tax positioning. And they typically had some sort of charitable inclination. Somewhere along the line, they crossed over and they turned into philanthropists. And they enjoyed the process of giving and learning about other nonprofit organizations that they could support. So tax planning is often key. So keep that in mind about what the primary motivation is, but how can we turn this into a benefit for our organization? It's likely to involve advisors. If you've never been at the table, so to speak, with an estate planning attorney or a financial advisor or whoever, these people do rely on advice from those trusted financial advisors. There's typically lots of paper, especially if we're talking about trusts, maybe a charitable gift annuity, retained life estate. There could be a lot of paper to these. And so just be prepared to do a little bit of reading and have some resources within your organization or your board of directors. It is not often, I said this before, if you know about one gift, there are 4 more out there that you don't know about. And so be prepared that they're going to be talking with their advisors. They may be putting this in place and you may know nothing about it. You're just the grateful beneficiary of that letter, of that gift. Finally, these types of gifts can be transformational. They're large gifts. These are assets at the end of life. And for your organization, these can mean a transformation in your programming, the ability to purchase a building, any type of idea that can take you to the next level. So keep that in mind. Next slide. All right, so why planned giving? Let's go on. Why do people, want to talk about these types of gifts? Why do they want to endow it? And we see a lot of people who come to us and they say things like, I'm not sure that the nonprofit that I want this to go to would be prepared to take this type of gift. And so they may want to look at, spending it out over a period of time or endowing it. And I would say that the majority of our donors that we work with want it endowed. They want this gift to go on forever. Maybe they're coming to us. We see quite a few people who come to us who say that they're doing this in honor of a loved one, maybe their parents, maybe a child, something like that. But they're doing it to remember somebody, and so that that person can continue on. It is again built with assets. You're not going to build your endowment with a donor's checkbook. They're not giving you that type of money. And finally, they want to be smart with their assets. And so understanding why they may make certain gifts, how it benefits them, and then how it benefits your organization. You do not need to have a law degree to be able to understand these concepts and work with donors on these types of gifts. You need to have resources that you can go back to, but the key to it is understanding why a donor might be using a particular plan giving vehicle, why it benefits them, and why it benefits you. Next slide. Being smart with assets, this is the key to it. Sit back and think about a couple of things here for a minute. Why might someone give you stock instead of writing a check? And I want to basically tell you, here's my directive to you. If your organization does not have a brokerage account, I want you to get a brokerage account. Make sure if you don't have one, check with your custodial bank, check with a board member, somebody like that who can get you set up with a brokerage account. Be prepared to take gifts of stock, especially at the end of the year. We found ourselves in a situation a few years ago where somebody called us up and they said, I'm trying to give a nonprofit $250,000 and I'm using stock and they don't have a brokerage account. And they just said, can we just have the cash instead? Now that nonprofit is fortunate because that donor picked up the phone and called me and said, can you please talk with them about how important it is to have a brokerage account? And that donor was ready to walk away from a $250,000 gift because the nonprofit said, can't we just have the cash? Clearly, that nonprofit development professional did not understand that that donor was being smart about use of assets, was trying to bypass the capital gains on that gift of stock, and they almost blew it. What we did is they actually had a donor advised fund with us. They sent the stock over to the community foundation, we liquidated it, and then we passed the gift through to the nonprofit. So they still got it. And I'm betting today that they still don't have a brokerage account. But this is why your organization needs to have a brokerage account so that you can accept these types of gifts and let your donors know that you accept these types of gifts. I love IRA gifts and the qualified charitable distribution for individuals who are 70.5 years or old or older. But when individuals are now 73 years old, they're now required to take distributions from their IRA. And as they get older, those distributions get larger. And they're probably at a point in their life where they're trying to avoid having to pay taxes or having a taxable event. And those required minimum distributions are exactly that. They are taxable. And they can make qualified charitable distributions that offset the required minimum that they need to take. And so here's another reason why your donors need to be giving using IRA funds, and make sure you're talking about it. Become really good at understanding IRA guidelines for traditional IRA retirement funds and encourage your donors to use it. Statistically, those gifts are larger than if they're just writing you a gift from their checkbook. We've talked about charitable remainder trust. Why would somebody make your organization a beneficiary of a charitable remainder trust? And understanding, here's the key. Why would the donor want to use a gift vehicle like a charitable remainder trust? And then also a donor advised fund. If you're used to getting gifts from Innovia Foundation, from their fund holders, understanding why a donor would have a donor advised fund, how it benefits them. You're just the lucky beneficiary of the grant. And I say lucky because statistically, gifts from donor advised funds are larger than just regular gifts with a checkbook. Next slide. All right. I said this before, the Arizona Community Foundation actually did a study on this, and the tax consequences are a big reason that people move forward with their gifts. And I've mentioned recent legislation, again, before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that increased standard deduction was a big one. The Secure Act, pretty much, there had a lot of provisions in it, but it was about retirement savings, and even the 2.0 version just continues that. So keeping in mind that the motivation for charitable giving and planned giving may be that tax and avoiding income tax, estate tax, capital gains tax. Keep that in mind, that that might be the first reason that they're doing this, but they have an appreciation for your organization and what you do. So continue to develop that relationship and see where it goes, but understanding that that may be their primary motivation. Next slide. Okay, bigger gifts. This is one of my favorite ways to work with donors and convert them from annual givers to plan givers. So keep this in mind. This is a slide you're going to want to come back to. If you have donors that are making annual gifts to your organization, we're going to use today the example of $1,000. They're making a $1,000 gift to you annually. Maybe they've been doing it for a few years. Maybe they've been doing it for 10 or 20 years. Maybe it started out as like $250 and it's grown, but they're giving you $1,000 a year. They've been supporting your organization at a regular rate consistently. The greatest way to get somebody to make a planned gift to you is to talk about endowing that gift. What would it take to continue that $1,000 annual gift each year if they were to make a gift to your organization and your endowment? Right here, very simply, 4%. PJ said that's what Innovia has. And so in order to endow an $1,000 annual gift, $25,000 is all they would need to leave to your organization to endow that $1,000. Now, don't stop there. I encourage you to, talk with donors about making a larger gift. What if they gave you $50,000 a year and they were able to double that annual gift? That might make them feel really good. But again, planned gifts are those big gifts at the end of life, and $25,000 may just be a drop in the bucket. And so this can be an easy way to start this conversation. It would make me feel really good if somebody said to me, hey, would you consider, talking about what it would take to endow your annual gift? So this is a great one. Come back to the slide when you get the slide deck and talk about it specifically with your board members. I love board members. They're low-hanging fruit, and they are usually very forgiving, especially if you're trying to put together a planned giving program and you want to have these conversations. They should be supporting your planned giving program with their own planned gift, and this is an easy way to do it. And just say, hey, we're doing this. I want to talk with you about it. I want you to listen to what I have to say, and help me build my what I'm going to say, my ask with donors. Okay. All right. Next slide. So who makes planned gifts? This is an important one to understand. Every year in June, the Giving USA, the Giving Institute, and the Lilly School of Philanthropy in Indiana University put out their statistics for the previous year. And next week, June 20th, they will be releasing the 2022 statistics. So what I have here is a little bit dated, but it's pretty consistent of what we see. So how much did Americans give in 2021? It was about $485 billion. And I want you to look at the sliver for bequests. That's 9%. You may think, oh, that's just 9%. Individual giving is at 67%. But I want you to think about 9% is $46 billion. That's a lot of money in estate gifts. So I want you to be recognizing that, again, if 70% of the plan gifts come in the form of a bequest and a will or a trust, you need to be talking about this with your donors. And this number is only expected to continue to grow. So it's been kind of here at this 8 to 9% for a while. I'm looking forward to next week. I'm thinking we're going to hit double digits. I got my fingers crossed. But this is part of the reason why you need to be talking about this with donors. Now you see that 4% sliver right there. It's actually been up a little bit during COVID because corporations were willing to do more sponsorships, get their name out there. But if you get a telephone call during this presentation, as I've gotten many, as you now know how rude that is, if you're getting a call from a donor and somebody who wants to sponsor your event, a local business that wants to sponsor your event, who are you going to call first? You call that donor. You call that donor, you talk to them. That is going to be the longer lasting relationship that's going to lead to more. You call that business back, you get that sponsorship, but they may change leadership there. You may fall from their list of preferred charities that they want to support. Anything can happen, but you call that donor back first because it's about a relationship. Next page, next slide. There we go. So this is just for fun. I want you to see this about where Americans give. And that big slice of 27% is religion. And consistently, they get the biggest piece of the pie. And so kind of just take a quick look at here and see where your organization falls into this. Down at the bottom, human services. Remember, this was back in 2021 at the height of the pandemic, and people were giving a lot more to human services. And so that we've seen that number go up. And so just wanted you, for fun, to see where your organization falls into this. Again, the Giving USA statistics will be coming out next Tuesday, June 20th. If you're interested and want to know more, I'd be happy to share, the results. They do a lovely infographic, and I update my slide deck at that point. Next slide. All right, I mentioned Dr. Russell James before. He did that beautiful statistics slide of pre-giving and post-planned gift giving. Here's what I want you to take away from this. 80% of Americans give every year. That is phenomenal. 80% give, but less than 10% have a plan that gives at their death. I'm going to be honest. My mother-in-law passed away about a month ago, and 2 weeks before she passed away, she was working on her charitable estate plans. And despite the fact that when my father-in-law passed away 3 years prior to that, she recognized how much of an inconvenience, a pain in the butt it was having to go through probate, dealing with all of that. Yet she didn't take away from that it would have been a good idea for her to put something in place sooner. And so at the end of her life, she was working on that. That's oftentimes the way that it is, if they do anything at all. And maybe you're talking with your donor can help prompt them into working with a professional to be able to set something up. But having these conversations, they're not going to give to you if you don't have the conversation. So keep that in mind. Next slide. So why so few? I'm going to be honest with you. I just mentioned my in-laws. This was the one thing. Planning for an estate gift is planning for their death. And if we don't do it, then it probably won't happen. Well, we know that's not true. So this is probably the one thing that does make people uncomfortable, is talking about their death. But I want to tell you, when I work with donors who are working through their charitable estate plans and an overall estate plan, they feel relieved when they know that everything is in place. And they will tell you, I'm so glad to know that this is done, that we've taken care of this. They do need to revisit it. And so if you're talking with a donor who says, yeah, I haven't looked at it in decades, well, they should probably revisit it. I was talking with one of our legacy donors the other day, and she said that everything that was in her plans was something that she wanted to change now for whatever reason. And so it is important for donors to update these things, look at them regularly, but nobody likes to do it. Let's just be honest. That's why there's so few people who've done it. And then, you know, as Dr. James says, negative brain reactions to mortality. You know, sitting down and talking with us is not anybody's favorite thing. So this is probably why, and I'm just going to throw something else in here. Nobody likes to spend the money and pay an attorney to work on something for when they're dead. Nobody does. I will get more people's ears to perk up when I say, hey, let's talk about the top charitable gifts, plan gifts that you can make without going to an attorney. Everybody wants to know that because nobody wants to go to an attorney and spend money on that, but they want to consider giving to charity. So just some things to think about. Next slide. Charitable giving combats negative death perceptions. Yes, it does. Quite frankly, what you're doing is you're leaving a legacy. Whether maybe it is a named opportunity, maybe there's a building or a conference room or a position, something like that. That's a potential way to keep that name going on forever. We have a donor that came to us about a year ago, and he wanted to know all the nonprofits that had naming opportunities because he didn't have children, and he wanted to look at a naming opportunity as a way for autobiographical heroism, right down there at the bottom. So keep that in mind about why donors would want, charitable giving should give them that warm, fuzzy feeling. And why do they want to talk with you about it? And so keep that in mind. Next slide. All right, what motivates bequest planning? It's really simple. Illness, injury, advancing age, death of a close friend, that'll do it. Death of a family member, travel plans. I have some donors that were all going to Mexico for Christmas a few years ago. They were all going to be on the same plane. And so they all came in and they wanted to make sure that their estate plans were up to date in case the plane went down and they all passed away. They have since become wonderful donors. They've created an endowed scholarship utilizing their IRA QCD money. And so they came back from Mexico, renewed and ready to continue with their charitable giving. So these are reasons why they may do a plan gift. Let's keep going. Here's another thing that you want to keep in mind for looking at your database. Do this when you get these slides. Think about this. Who are your donors that have no children? I have to be honest with you. Everybody solicits us for a gift. Higher education. These are the people who are also going to make some sort of estate gift. Your donors who give $500 a year or more regularly, even if it's just small gifts. How about your volunteers? This is a powerful group of people, volunteers giving to your organization their time. They may not be able to afford gifts during lifetime, or they may have other plans, but if they're volunteering, they care about your organization and your success. So look at those as potential gift plan donors for plan gifts. And also a recent health diagnosis. We do see this that, something scares them and they recognize that life is precious and they do need to get their plans together. Next slide. All right. So when you're having these conversations, these are not your same questions that you're going to go to for sponsorship of your event or your annual givers, where you might just send them a letter. You want to have these conversations. These are the gifts that come from relationships. So being able to build that relationship is important to getting the gift and realizing it. And it may take time for you to get these gifts. It may take a year or more. It just depends. You may be prompting a donor to be thinking about what a gift to your organization would look like. So here are some questions that you can ask them. What moved you to support our organization? Things that you're grateful about for our organization. Maybe they have a hope or a vision for your organization. And how would you want to be remembered? Did you have a passion? That type of thing. Do you inspire others? This is their opportunity to be a champion for your organization. And if you, I promise you, if you ask them these types of questions, you start the conversation, it will make a difference in your efforts, will pay off. So next slide. Here's the cautionary slide. Remember all the things that prompt people to make gifts, the lovely family going to Mexico on the same plane, you know, loss of a loved one, that type of thing. These are the same things that will make them change a gift. Now, during the pandemic, I saw so many people coming to update their charitable estate plans, and it was heartbreaking to see how many of them were taking good nonprofits out of their charitable estate plans. So I was asking, you know, if you don't mind telling me, why are you taking this organization out of your estate plans? Well, I stopped hearing from them. Or my spouse passed away and hospice became a big part of our life. There can be a lot of different reasons, but stewardship is the most important thing that you can do so that you don't lose track of your donors and so that they don't take you out of their estate plans. Because most planned gifts are revocable and they can change them if they change their mind about you. This is something as a caution that you need to remember. Steward these donors, stay on their radar, let them know you care about them and you appreciate their gift. Even as they get older and maybe they stop coming to your events, you know, I gotta be honest with you, I don't like driving at night. And I know that as donors get older, they feel the same way. Maybe they're uncomfortable getting out. So keep that in mind. The same reason that people put you into their estate plans is the same, can be the same reason that they take you out. Next slide. All right, let's do a quick recap. I know everybody's starting to watch, look at the clock and see how long Kristen's going to talk. So today we talked about what makes a planned gift and why donors make planned gifts. Understanding that is very important. Not just why they make a planned gift, but why they choose a specific gift vehicle. And who's likely to make planned gifts? Older donors, childless donors, educated, faithful, mortality considerations. All of those are reasons that are going to trigger people to make a planned gift. So in conclusion, how do you build an endowment? It's through planned gifts. Getting these gifts in the pipeline. Again, you're not going to know about every one of them, but knowing what gifts are available to donors, building that relationship, maintaining that relationship, you'll be surprised how it benefits you. Next slide. Okay, this is the slide that I was talking about earlier. I love it. My husband and I just started watching Ted Lasso a couple weeks ago. And don't be a goldfish. Don't forget this after 10 seconds, but Ted's always got a plan and we don't always know what it is. So when you leave today, what can you be doing? I said this several times. Bequests from a will or a trust are the most common planned gift. So at the very least, you need to make sure that when you're talking with donors, ask them if they would consider making some sort of estate gift to your organization. It's as simple as that. And starting the conversation, what does that look like? Maybe they want to, maybe they want to talk about, well, I don't know if I could afford it. You'd be surprised. There are typically assets there. Build that relationship and you will see the benefits of that revenue. Next slide. So what will you do after today? First of all, if you don't have a brokerage account, you're going to look into getting a brokerage account. You're going to talk about how simple it would be to be able to have some of these conversations with annual givers. Hey, would you consider endowing your gift? Being able to start getting some of these gifts, talking about it, letting them know that you accept these gifts. Go beyond the simplicity of the buck slip or your events that are happening. Start having deeper conversations with those donors that support and are loyal to your organization. Next slide. All right, professional resources. The Inland Northwest Development Council, the Inland Northwest Plan Giving Council, we love that, and the Spokane Estate Planning Council. So there are additional resources out there for you besides your friends at Innovia. So make sure that you're checking them out. It's really great to be able to connect with people who are doing plan giving and making it part of their work with their clients and donors. And I think that's it. This is it for me. This is my contact information at the Arizona Community Foundation. I would love to hear from you. Even more, I hope that you come back for the next couple of sessions that we've got in this series. Next time we're going to come back and we are going to talk about building a planned giving program. So we're actually going to get into the nitty-gritty details of that.
Hey,
Perfect.
Kristen.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. Thanks so much. Yvonne, yeah, you've been accumulating questions. We'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
Wonderful. All right, Kristen, we have some great questions here for you. So one of these is from, says, so as a nonprofit, can we use unrestricted funds to start our endowment?
Oh, that's a great question. They're unrestricted. Absolutely.
Fabulous.
Yeah. That's as simple as that. They're unrestricted. You can use them for a capital project. They're unrestricted. Enjoy them. And I love the fact that you would consider putting them towards an endowment.
Okay, here's another one. Why can't you start an endowment with cash? What if you have extra cash?
Sure. And you can start an endowment with cash, but you're not going to grow your endowment with just cash gifts. Everything builds, but if you have donors who are giving you $500 or $1,000, that's really not going to grow that endowment. And so don't focus on growing your endowment with cash. Focus on plan giving being that way that you build up your endowment. If you're working with donors on making some sort of plan gift, the cash gifts will continue to come.
Great. Okay, so here's another one. Can you plan a gift during your lifetime to reduce the size of your estate to avoid Washington State estate tax?
Sure, absolutely you can. That is one of the motivators for doing it. So talk with your trusted financial advisor, whether it's your tax accountant, your CPA, talk with them about how you can do that. That's absolutely this is a perfect way to talk about doing it. So yes, great question.
Right. Okay. So when might you use a beneficiary designation to make a planned gift?
Oh, I love beneficiary designations. And the reason that I love them is they pass outside the will or a trust. And so the beneficiary designations, all you have to do is they get a copy of the death certificate and they can go ahead and they can pass those funds on to you. And so IRA funds is a great way to do it. Bank accounts, insurance policies, these beneficiary designations can move that money through to you much quicker than going through, the will or the trust to be able to receive that money. So you always need beneficiary designations are the easiest. And what I love about it is you don't have to be the beneficiary of the whole amount. So if somebody is a little concerned about that, maybe they make you 10% beneficiary or 25%. Maybe, they give it to you as part of an overall beneficiary plan. I love beneficiary designations. Everybody should be doing them, whether you have an insurance policy through work or your IRAs. It's a great way to give. And again, looking at assets that are better to give to charity than passing on to heirs.
Great. Okay, so that leads me to the next question. Why would someone create a CRT instead of making an outright gift?
Oh, good question.
Charitable remainder trust.
Okay, charitable remainder trust. They're a bit of a more complicated animal. First of all, they're somewhat expensive to set up. You do need to go to an attorney to do that. This is typically your donors that have assets, maybe real estate, closely held business interests, something like that. Maybe not closely held business interests, typically real estate, or maybe appreciated stock, and utilizing it into a charitable remainder trust. The reason for the charitable remainder trust, like a charitable gift annuity, is these are split interest gifts. And so the donors setting these up get the benefit of income for either a period of time or life. And in the case of a charitable remainder trust, it can go on for multiple generations. And so donors who are looking for an opportunity to be able to use assets and to get income from it, this is why they're looking at things like the charitable remainder trust or the charitable gift annuity. And you as an organization, first of all, you need to understand why they may want to do something like this, and then also how it plays out and how it's going to benefit you. As I pointed out with our donor who recently just passed away at 106, she's had this CRT for a long time, and now her sons who are in their 80s are going to get the benefit of it. And then there's another grandson out there who's going to get the benefit of it. So no charities are going to receive any money for the foreseeable future. And so it's a great gift. It's a great gift to know that's in the pipeline, but you might not receive, but it's also typically a much larger gift than a donor who's just giving you cash.
Right. Chris, you were going to share some benefits of working with Innovia.
Yeah, thanks, Yvonne. So going through all these examples, Kristen, this is wonderful. And I will tell you at Innovia, the nonprofit endowments, which we host, are our fastest growing endowments. And so when we're talking about all these non-cash gifts and these different kind of vehicles, when you have an endowment at Innovia, we can help process all of those. For those that do not have those brokerage accounts, or those folks that do not want to try to liquidate a piece of property and turn those into charitable dollars, the foundation is here to help you with that. And when you have established a nonprofit endowment, we can help you with all of those, and we're happy to. And when you have those donors that are meeting with their professional advisors to talk about planned gifts, we are happy to meet with them as well. And as Kristen pointed out, we don't cost anything. So we're a great resource as a community foundation, as is the Arizona Community Foundation. So, and then one other item Kristen mentioned, when folks want to make that qualified charitable distribution from their retirement account, they can do that directly to a fund at Innovia. So if you have a fund, if you have a nonprofit fund, folks can make it from that account to the fund. And Yvonne, if you or Katie could attach that to the chat. Well, we have a form that you could share out with your donors if they wanted to make that type of a gift. It's kind of the instructions for making that kind of a transfer. And we will include that when we do our follow-up email as well. If we're unable to get it into the chat, we'll send you that. But we want to thank everybody for attending. I know, Yvonne, you wanted to thank our presenting partner, so I'll turn it back over to you.
I do. Thank you so much. So a very warm and sincere thanks to the Inland Northwest Planned Giving Council for being our presenting sponsor today. And the Inland Northwest Planned Giving Council was founded in 1994 to provide programming and educational events that support the work of nonprofit development officers, financial professionals, and estate planning advisors throughout the Inland Northwest who are engaged in helping donors to make planned giving gifts for charitable purposes. So wonderful organization to belong to. It's a very affordable at $120 a year. So please visit their website. It's inwpgc.org. And it's also on one of the slides there. So but we just wanted to be sure we said a sincere thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And then the last thing, before we let you go, we want to just again remind you of the upcoming events. We hope to see you there July 25th, again on August 8th. And then finally, we have our networking social mid-August, which is a wonderful time. And since you've attended, you'll get that, you have the opportunity to register at no cost. So Kristen, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you at our next event.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.